The forest of Arcara had always been wild, untamed, and unforgiving. Towering trees with luminescent leaves stretched toward the sky, their roots intertwining with the crystalline riverbeds below. It was home to creatures both magnificent and lethal, but nothing captured the spirit of the forest quite like the deathworlders, primal beings of strength, loyalty, and astonishing intelligence. And among them, the cubs were the heart, young and fiercely protective, yet naive in the ways of survival. I first encountered them during a scouting mission for the human contingent stationed near the forest's edge. My team had been tracking signs of a rogue alien faction using the forest as a hideout. The cubs, small but agile, were initially invisible to us. Only their whispers on the wind and subtle disturbances of leaves revealed their presence. Then came her. She was a warrior unlike any I had seen, part humanoid, part something wilder, deathworlder, a being who carried both grace and terrifying ferocity. Her eyes, golden and piercing, scanned the environment with practiced precision. She moved silently, yet every step radiated confidence and control. Around her, the cubs mirrored her movements, learning from every gesture, every pause, every indication of danger. Our mission was tactical reconnaissance, but I found myself drawn to their bond. The cubs had instinctively taken her as their leader, protector, and teacher. They observed her, copied her, and relied on her entirely. It was a hierarchy that balanced instinct with intelligence, and even as a human outsider, I recognized its elegance and ruthlessness. The day of the ambush began with the subtle scent of smoke and the faint hum of alien energy signatures. The rogue faction had set traps, anticipating human movements. We entered the forest cautiously, unaware that the enemy had already engaged her in a diversionary attack to lure our forces into the open. I watched from behind a crystalline fern as the first shots rang out. She moved like a shadow, deflecting energy blasts with swift, precise motions, leading the cubs to cover. For a moment, I felt relief. Her skill was unparalleled, but then, in an instant, she faltered. A sudden strike from above, a concealed weapon aimed with cruel accuracy, found its mark. She fell, crashing to the ground with a thud that echoed through the forest. The cubs cried out, a sound that was both human in its emotion and alien in its intensity. Their wails pierced the air, carrying both grief and a call to action. But they did not flee. They did not freeze. Instead, they turned toward the enemy, their small frames bristling with unexpected defiance. One cub stepped forward, its stance rigid, eyes locked on the attackers. Then another and another. The youngest, trembling yet resolute, growled, a sound low and menacing, yet distinctly intelligible. Run. It was surreal. The cubs had absorbed the essence of their leader's courage, translating grief into a strategic warning. They were too young to understand the full consequences, but instinct, loyalty, and inherited ferocity had guided them. And the enemy hesitated. I saw the confusion in their eyes. These creatures, trained and armed, had not anticipated resistance from the young. They faltered, uncertain whether to attack or retreat. The cubs did not waver. Their growls intensified, synchronized, a chorus of threat that rippled through the forest. I realized then that the forest itself seemed to respond, the air thickening with tension, the bioluminescent flora dimming and pulsing in rhythm with their warning. It was a display of unity, power, and raw instinct that no human strategy could replicate. I rushed forward, ignoring protocol and safety, drawn by a mix of awe and urgency. I reached her side just as the enemy began to retreat, cowed by a force they had underestimated. She lay on the ground, her breath ragged but steady, her golden eyes scanning the cubs' defensive formation. "You did well," she said softly, her voice hoarse but resolute. They listened. I helped her to her feet, noting the small cuts and bruises along her arms and legs. She stood, swaying slightly, yet her presence remained commanding. The cubs gathered around, brushing against her legs, seeking reassurance. She touched each one lightly, a gesture of approval and comfort, before turning to face me. "They understand," she said. "Strength is not just physical. It is the courage to act when fear is present, to protect those weaker than oneself, and to command respect without demanding it. These cubs, they have learned that today." We retreated to a nearby clearing, using the dense canopy and natural terrain to shield ourselves from further attacks. The cubs remained alert, their growls now subdued but ever watchful. I realized that their bond with her was deeper than mentorship. It was survival, trust, and shared instinct. Over the following days, as we regrouped and tended to minor injuries, I observed them closely. They had transformed. The cubs were no longer merely followers. They were defenders, strategists in their own right. Each movement, each glance, carried the imprint of their leader's teachings. Even the youngest, who had been trembling in fear during the initial ambush, now moved with confidence, scanning the perimeter and coordinating silently with its siblings. The rogue faction attempted another strike, but this time, we were ready. The cubs led the charge, guiding us through concealed paths, warning of traps and coordinating defensive maneuvers with uncanny precision. It was a dance of instinct and learned behavior, a living testament to the lessons she had imparted. And at the center of it all stood their leader, her injuries healing more quickly than human physiology would allow, her presence a beacon of resilience and authority. She did not fight recklessly. Each movement was calculated, each decision deliberate. And the cubs followed, not blindly, but with understanding and intent. By the end of the conflict, the rogue faction was driven back, their forces scattered and demoralized. The forest, once again, fell into quiet rhythm, the luminescent leaves swaying gently in the wind. I stood among the cubs, now silent but alert, and the warrior who had inspired them. "You've done well," I said, awe evident in my voice. "I've never seen anything like this, loyalty, courage, and instinct combined in such a way." She smiled faintly, brushing a strand of luminous hair from her face. "They will survive. And when I am gone, they will carry the lessons forward. Strength is not born solely from power, but from guidance, trust, and the willingness to act when it matters most." The cubs nuzzled against her, a silent affirmation of their bond. I realized then that I had witnessed something extraordinary, not just the defense of a forest, but the evolution of a pack under the guidance of a singular, fearless leader. As we left the forest, the cubs bounding alongside us with newfound confidence, I reflected on the events that had transpired. The fall had seemed catastrophic at first, a moment of vulnerability that could have led to disaster. But through courage, instinct, and leadership, they had transformed fear into action, despair into strategy. And in that moment, I understood a profound truth. True leadership is measured not by dominance, but by the ability to inspire, guide, and elevate others, even the smallest and youngest, to face the impossible and survive. Because sometimes, the fiercest roar comes not from the adult, but from those who have learned to carry the